Hey everyone, welcome to another Angry Artist podcast. I will be talking about something very fundamental and something a lot of people get taught when they're early in their careers, but something that can also be very misunderstood. Now, if you read the title on this video, you're probably going to understand that it is the idea of circles and spheres. An enormous amount of tutorials out there tend to talk about using spheres and using circles to construct your subject matter, most notably when you're drawing human beings. I'm sure you've seen tutorials where they say, hey, use a sphere or use a circle, and then you add features on it and you get this anime face. Admittedly, if you were to build on a circle, you'll get your results faster. However, a lot of people do not really understand why the circle can hold you back. And this comes down to perspective and structure. So I want you to look out your window and look at buildings. Chances are 99.999% of the world are square structures. What you will all also notice when you are looking at rectangular prisms and squares and rectangles is there are very decisive sides. This proves incredibly useful when you are trying to create perspective. Now let's transfer this to art. We are creating an illusion of space. To create the illusion of space, you have to have the elements in your piece convey the sense of space. As there's really no other way of doing it. Everything in your artwork, of course, is based off of what you put on the canvas. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but let me go on. That also means that on the canvas, if you do not have elements that tell your audience, hey, your work is in space, or hey, your work is three-dimensional, then your work will not have that sense of space. You, of course, are sort of giving out hints. It's what I like to see artwork as. You are giving out hints that your piece is in a certain space, and that it's a certain angle, and it's a certain subject matter, that sort of thing. You are creating an illusion. Now, if you were to take out hints, then your piece will not have that sense of anything. I'm sure that sounds a little bit confusing, but let me give you an example. If you were to look into an environmental concept art, you will probably have a great sense of space in there. You feel like you're looking in an actual world. Now, not saying this is better or for worse, but if you were to look at a Jackson Pollock, there are no hints to show that this is in space. Of course, Jackson Pollock's work are all abstract. So let's get back to the idea of circles. If you were to build your piece around spheres and circles, because of the fact that circles have infinite or no sides, you will create no hint that the piece is in perspective space. So what I mean by this is it's sort of like building your world without square buildings. You are building them with circles, and when you create a piece of things built around a circular foundation, then your piece might end up having no perspective. Now, if you are more experienced and you're aware of it, you realize you should be building your subject matters based off of a ton of geometric shapes, not just circles. which is really the right way of doing it. If you're, for example, drawing a head, and you are looking at how to draw manga tutorials, you will probably think circles are the foundations of the human head. It is very easy to simplify something into a circle like that. Of course, you think, okay, well, my skull is rounded, so it has to be a circle, right? It is a huge misconception. Even though our heads look round, there are clear faces of our heads. So, of course, our sides of our heads are actually pretty flat, as with our faces sometimes. We have very distinct clues as to where the front, the sides, the back, the top, and the bottom of our heads are. Which means that in actuality, if you were to draw a head, you can actually break it down into a cube. It is more useful for an artist to understand the human anatomy in terms of cubes. You will train yourself to see things in perspective because there will be no misconceptions of where the faces are. And of course, faces are hints when it comes to creating three-dimensionality in your artwork. A big trap that a lot of people do is they build the human head around a circle, and all sides of the head do not look like they're in perspective. It just looks really weird because our heads are not created by infinite amount of faces or edges. Therefore, we're not really spheres and we're not really circles. In fact, in nature, a lot of things, if not everything, is not a perfect circle. Actually, let me correct that. There are very few things in nature which are perfect circles. Otherwise, you are more likely to be able to dissect something if you thought of them as squares, cubes, and rectangles. So if I were to go back to the metaphor with the buildings, we are creating our world, our canvas, as if we are building a city. Everything is in cubes and rectangular prisms. If you are able to do that, then your piece will always have enough hints to show that it is three-dimensional. Now, to end it off, that's not to say everything has to be built with cubes and rectangles. Our faces, if you were to draw them just as cubes and squares, then we'll probably just create very square heads. And of course, in nature, there are a lot of ambiguous objects that require a lot more geometric shapes to simplify. But for the time being, I want you to try just imagining everything having a cube encompassing it. Know that no matter how round the object is, there are faces to it, and certain angles are facing certain sides. Trust me, if you are able to do that and change your mentality about it, you will be able to build any type of composition if you are able to see it that way. Again, sort of like building a city. Anyways, thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.